Last week, there were a couple of injuries that you spoke on. I believe it was Kozak, Ciccone, and Murray were all week to week.
Murray's multiple weeks.
Okay. With the other two, are they still week to week as well?
They're trending in a better direction, but they're still currently out.
Can you talk about just that big weekend in Providence? We're two very different games, but your team finding a way to come through and now on what, 6-game win streak?
Yeah, Providence got a really good team. I thought they were better than us in the first. We started, they played the night before. We've talked about this before, so they're kind of in game mode still. We knew you could keep it tight. Then you could take advantage of maybe them being a little more tired than you when you're fresh. We did a good job defensively, and Devon was good in net to keep it 1-0 through that first 25 minutes or so. Then got it square, and then the big goal to tie it late was just a really, really high-end play by Mersch and Jops to set Wahlberg up. It's probably underrated how good of a play Michael Mersch made on that, because it looks like it's a simple play, but for him to have a presence of mind to win the race, presence of mind to know where Jops was without touching the puck yet, and then to handle a rim at that speed and bump it to Jops right in the wheelhouse was really elite play. So obviously then Mersch won it in overtime on his knees, which is you feel comfortable when your captain gets the puck in that spot. Sunday's game was great early, sloppy mid, late at times. But what I liked in both games was resilience, some grit, some big block shots both nights. Some huge penalty kills in big moments of the game. Huge PK late against Providence, huge PK late against Bridgeport, and in overtime against Bridgeport. So without the penalty kill and the goaltenders stepping up in those moments, you're not able to get those 4 points.
That Sunday game, like from an intangibles standpoint, I mean, what does that say about your team? Because you're up 4-0, now it's 4-4. It's easy to get down on yourself there, and these guys bumped it down and found a way to still win it. Yeah,
Eric could say the other thing, that we're stupid enough to blow a 4-0 lead. So, so that's the side coaches are going to look at. We got a lot of belief in our group in big moments. Like I think 23 or 24 of our games have been overtime this year. I think the number is like 54, 55 out of 67 have been 1-goal games middle of the third period. So we're comfortable being in tight games. And that's become a strength of the group, is that there's not a lot of panic. What I didn't like in that game is that we handed them offense. Teams earn their offense, great. No problem, tip your cap. We've done a really good job of that over the last month or so, of making teams earn it. That game, we handed them too much offense.
Only other thing I want to ask, Jops gets his 20th goal this season. I love that it comes in Bridgeport, the place he started his career, and he talked before this season about, he was trying to cut his teeth, he tried to earn minutes in that city, and then here, a few years later, he's a 20-goal scorer, he's your team leading scorer. What does he do right?
Mason Jops does almost everything right. He's another massive leader on this group. He's become a driver of our competitiveness, driver of our team habits, our daily habits individually. He's right up there at the top of the team in terms of his daily work ethic and daily competitiveness. How hard he attacks getting better every day, even at 30 years old. Just a great player in his own right, and then also an incredible role model for our young prospects.
I know streaks like this are hard to come by, but are there hockey guys you grind to get at this time of year?
I just worry about the next day and the next game. And I know that sounds cliche, but that's really what I believe in. And I believe in that when we're struggling as well. You start worrying about those things, you start worrying about standings, and you stop taking care of the things you can control. And the only thing we can control today is how good we practice. And then the same tomorrow in preparation to give ourselves the best chance to win on Friday night against Belleville.
You mentioned Mersch and kind of the play you may being underrated or underappreciated. What, as a captain, I guess kind of a general question, how much does he have to do with what you guys have been able to do? How much does DNA has not been able to do?
We wouldn't be where we have been over the last 3 years without Michael Mersch being the captain. I've coached one game of pro hockey without him. We signed him on a PTO. So that's also a unique story to it. In that COVID year, a lot of people were out of jobs, and hockey players are none the same because there wasn't a lot of jobs. Nobody wanted to sign veterans. You didn't want to spend money in a COVID year. We were able to bring him in on a PTO, and he's emerged as, one of the most important Amerks leaders, in the last couple decades probably. And I know that I'm a way smarter coach when Michael Mersch is my captain.
How encouraging is it seeing the way that your team has found different ways to win? Do you feel comfortable? Seems like you can win a 6-5 game, and you feel like you're comfortable being able to win a 2-1 game?
Yes, that's something we've had to really build towards. Early in the year, we probably were only very comfortable winning 5-4 and 6-5. And we've had to work towards, just like we did last year. And I think that's the nature probably of the American League, probably even more the nature of us because we're so young. We have 3 rookie defensemen playing most nights. We have, our centers most nights are 19, 20, years old. A lot of our top 6 or top 9 forwards are under the age of 21 right now. And so there is some growing pains that come with it. And we're probably still more comfortable on the higher scoring side of it. But we've become a lot more comfortable and a lot more efficient at being a solid defensive team.
I know you were always focused on the next day, next practice, you're ready for that game. But being 1 point away from clinching another postseason berth, I'm sure that isn't lost on you, the fact of how difficult it is to make the postseason consistently, especially in this league with all the turnover. Do you have any thoughts on how tough that is, or reflecting on how close you are on the break of another postseason berth?
I haven't thought about it, to be honest. Legitimately been thinking about how to prepare our guys for the most physically demanding team in our league in Belleville. So I know where the standings are. I'm not one to think a lot about those things or spend time on it or reminisce about the last couple of years that. So for me, what I do know in this division is it's a darn grind. Most of the divisions are separated by 40 points, and ours is separated by about a week of good play or a week of poor play. And so I know that playing in the North Division is tremendously challenging, and I know that if you let up for a second, you're going to pay for it. And so we're just trying to stay focused on that.
Are you aware that the Amerks haven't won a regular season North Division title since 05?
Not aware of that. I wasn't aware that we hadn't won a playoff series 2 years ago either. It's not something that drives me. What drives me is trying to make our group a great group, and you try to fight for that every day. What drives me is trying to push our players to achieve their career goals. For some of them, that's to extend their career in the American League. For some of them, that's to get to the NHL. Those are the things that I wake up and think about every day, not that other stuff. And I don't think that this group of men that we have, young men, just like a couple years ago with the playoff stuff, they don't need to carry the burden of past failure. I think that is a mistake that I've made in the past in my coaching career. And I think it's a mistake at times when I was a player, is you're trying to make up for past wrongs or past situations that these guys weren't ever a part of. And so for me, I'm just big on let's stay focused on this group and on what we want to give each other to try to be a really good hockey team.
You've got a handful of younger players on your team who came into the season, their goal was to be on an NHL roster, and a lot of them got a taste of it, got sent back down. I'm sure that's, a disappointment for them when that happens. How do you kind of go about reshaping that, having them deal with that, and helping them continue on here in the AHL?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing in the American League is that 90% of your roster doesn't want to be here. There's the few AHL vets, and we don't have a lot because we're young, that they know that this is where they are at now and they love it. But most of the 23 to 25-year-olds, the guys that have been up and down the last couple of years, they want to stay there, and the young kids want to get there. And so you have to try to get them to understand that the best way to get there and stay there is to immerse themselves in the process of being here and fully commit to being Amherst in every sense of the word. If you're invested where your feet are, if you're mentally and in your heart invested where your feet are in the moment, that's the best way for you to grow and get to where you want to get to eventually. But if you're living mentally or in your heart there still or there anyway, and your feet are here, you're usually not doing enough work to end up getting there. Our goal is to get players ready to stay there, not to just be there for 5 games or whatever it is. And so when a younger prospect comes back down, the focus is on how was it? What did you learn? What were you unprepared for? What's our roadmap forward so you can attack these things to get yourself more ready the next time you earn that trip up?
How have they gone about, immersing themselves?
This group is great. There's been very little hand-holding. Like, you got to coach them, obviously. Kulik and Roseanne really, really bought in by Christmas last year. A couple months of pushing and prodding. This is the extra work you need to do. These are the habits you need to have. And then since then, it's been more like this, a steady climb for them. And then I just keep throwing more on their plate. Last year, it was more the habits you need to be a great pro in North America, the off-ice habits, the amount of work you have to put in, how you need to do things to be a good offensive player. Now this year, I'm throwing defense at them. I'm throwing penalty kill at them. Throwing D-zone starts at them. I'm throwing matchups against the other team's top line at them. And so that's the goal, I think, is that they handle it well, and then you put more on their plate. You put more adversity onto them because that failure and adversity forces them to grow.
And then, obviously, on your longest winning streak of the season, and you look back any X number of games you won, 10 or 12 or whatever, how do you kind of keep this going forward when it's a long grind and, the games keep getting tougher? How do you try and make sure you guys aren't peaking too early in a sense?
Again, as I mentioned earlier, just worrying about today. I think we've done a really good job collectively. This is our captains in the room, our leaders in the room, our coaching staff, at being steady and being consistent in our approach, whether we're playing good or playing poor. That doesn't mean I don't hold them accountable when they're playing poor. We do, but I think that if you ask our players, they know exactly what they're going to get from me and Mershey and Prowse and Byro and Murray, our leaders, Yops, those guys. They know what they're going to get on a daily basis. They know how I'm going to approach every day. Some days I might be hard on them. Some days it might be a little more loose. It depends on the day. But my approach, Mershey's approach, is very consistent. And so I think what happens then is we avoid some of the massive ebbs and flows that can happen with getting too excited about wins and too defeated with losses.
Well, that's one. I know it's a question for Devon to ask him, but what do you think he's learned the most from first year of being a pro? Have you seen him grow too from a guy that's gone up and down?
Well, Devon Levi's daily approach is excellence. And what has he learned? I think that's something he has to answer. I don't like to speak for our players. But I think that one of the biggest things you have to learn, especially as a goalie, is most goalies are creatures of habit, and there's routines and there's patterns, the things you want to do to get mentally and physically ready to play. It's harder in pro for that because the games are coming with more frequency. And then when you're going up and down, sometimes it leads to more of that. You're there one night, you got to come back in here and start the next night. Or you're starting here one night and you might not totally know, but you read the tea leaves and you're like, I'm probably going up after this game. Well, how do you stay present? How do you stay in that moment? Either way. So I think those are great learning experiences. He'll speak on how he's learned from it. But I think that's a big thing to go through as a goaltender in their first year.
I know a lot of the things you talk about are like cliches, you say, like staying in the moment and all these things. But you really believe it. Like, when did you develop that as a coach? Because you said the same things to us time and time again. And like, you really believe that. And I feel like that's been part of your success as coach, as team success.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say anything I don't believe in. I don't believe in coach speak. I'm going to give honest answers, as you guys know. That's just who I am. I do believe in that. I think that I've always believed in it to a certain extent. I like a lot of it, like anybody, comes from your parents. But I've had mentors along the way. George Wozniacki at Denver being a massive one that I learned a ton from, and where steadiness and sticking to your beliefs. You have to be flexible enough to adjust when you're off course, but you have to be steady enough to stay on it during adversity. And I think that when you look back, you got to learn, and you learn from mistakes that you've made, and maybe making it too miserable at times when we're playing poorly in my past coaching life, or making it too good and too excitable when we're playing great. I firmly believe that the rink should be the funnest place to come every single day, no matter how we're playing. Now, you got to work. And that is the challenge every year. And I lay that out day one, that we are going to work, we are going to compete, and we are going to dig in and attack every single day. But we want to do it with energy, with passion, and with fun. The best teams can mesh those together. The teams that struggle, work is monotonous and boring, and fun and is a little too slappy and goofy, and they don't mesh the two. And that's the goal every year, is to try to mesh that together.